All right, 7 o'clock, going to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Roberts.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Palumbi. Councilmember Graves.
Here.
Councilmember Safer.
Here.
Councilmember Tull.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Here.
Next item, Pledge of Allegiance. Forgot to say who's leading that, sorry. Got us off to an awkward start. All right, number 4, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Agenda is approved. Item number 5, comments from the public. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak this evening? And, oh. She goes.
Hi, I'm Liz Ryan, 2417 Erie. Anna's not here, but I wanted to really commend her on the excellent job that she does with the hospital and the COVID. She gives actual facts. It's, the people and who's in ICU and other things. And I also want to thank you, Bryant, for the excellent job you do with talking with Dr. Righteous and giving us all the facts. And I think when you two give all the facts, the numbers, maybe one person will hear that and get the vaccine. So I thank both of you for all you do. Thanks.
Thank you. The facts are very important. I appreciate the comment. Thank you. Any further public comments? Seeing none, on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I had one item on the consent agenda. Number 8, the minutes from the strategic planning session mention a discussion of the playground at River Forest Park. That wasn't during that meeting, so I already spoke to Crystal about it, so just having that amended. So I would move to approve with that amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a first and second. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Opposed, no. All right, consent agenda is approved. Item number 15.
North Kansas City Business Council year-end presentation and annual services contract, resolution number 21-065.
Kim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The City Council has stated one of its priorities is the growth of economic development, and traditionally they have supported the North Kansas City businesses through a contract for services with the North Kansas City Business Council. Rich Groves is here this evening to give us a year-end review of all the activities that they have performed underneath the last service for contract. And another agenda item on this following his presentation is the renewal of their upcoming contract for services. And with that, Rich.
Oh, I don't. Hey! Sorry, I didn't mean to yell in your ears. All right, my name is Jason Crowley. I am presently the president of the Business Council. My day job, I work for a company called Indigex, where I'm also the president and owner there. Indigex is an IT managed services provider. We started in 2003, but moved our operations here to Northtown in 2011. It's an interesting story how we ended up here, but we love it here. We moved our entire operation here in 12 and have worked very well with the city, been very involved in the business community here. We love the amenities, especially Link City, and low taxes and ease of working with this governing body and with city staff. I'm here to tell you a little bit, provide an annual report of the funds that the Business Council has used that were granted by the city as part of this contract for services. You should have received a paper copy with all the facts and details, or a PDF copy, depending on how it was distributed. I won't go through all of those details and bore you. My job is to hit some highlights. First, we'll talk a little bit about the structure of the Business Council. The Business Council serves all of the 900-plus businesses within the city of North Kansas City. It was founded following the flood of '93. In '94, there was a need for a council to represent just the businesses in North Kansas City. There had been a North Kansas City Chamber of Commerce prior to that. It merged with a couple of other chambers to become what we now know as the Northland Regional Chamber. And with that having a broader scope and having moved out of Northtown in 92, there was a void left in focusing strictly on businesses in North Kansas City. A few of you are probably old enough to remember the flood of 93 and what it was like. My understanding is the levee here barely held. It was like walking on a sponge if you got out there. And some other cities, Riverside, Parkville, certainly did not suffer or suffered a much worse fate than North Kansas City did. The mayor at the time was Elizabeth Short, and at her behest, the North Kansas City Business Council was formed with businesses in North Kansas City to really speak to the needs of that which is strictly within the city limits here. We are a 501c6 member-based organization. Most chambers, economic development councils, stuff like that are in that category. A little bit about our staff and committees. We just have 2 staff, fairly lean operation. Executive Director Rich Groves, you guys have probably seen many times in here. Member Services and Events Coordinator Paula Brooks used to be involved in Link City, and she knows the businesses and the people here in town and does a very good job of maintaining those connections and keeping things very organized. Along with those folks, we have an executive committee. These are the people that do a lot of the day-to-day management of what's going on in the Business Council. I serve as the president. I'm pleased to serve with Brooks, who is here, Jack Fry, Julie Sola of Harris, Kellen Mum of Chicken and Pickle, and I guess that's it for them. Board, it consists of 20 members. They're all on your screen. I won't go through everybody. Hopefully you can see that they cover a wide swath of interests in Northtown, including professional services, food, drink, and entertainment, retail, healthcare, education, and industrial businesses. I want to mention something at this point, just because it's come up a couple of times in conversations, and I've been asked why the city doesn't have representation on the Business Council, considering the city is one of the major funding sources for the Business Council. My understanding is that there are some legal reasons why that's not a good idea, and I will refer you to Tom Barzee here for the explanation of that, but this Business Council does not prohibit city council members or city staff from serving on the board. We always welcome any of you to address the board of directors, to address the Business Council. Find Rich, find me, find any of the other people that represent the council here, and we will be happy to help you get in front of the Business Council. Also, if you have any questions, find us. That's why we're here. So, moving on, the mission of the Business Council is in 3 words: support, inform, connect. And I will turn over to Rich, who will talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you. As Jason did say, support, inform, connect kind of says in 3 words what we do. And when we talk about support, it means we give businesses the opportunity to promote themselves. We offer opportunities for networking, and we try to be attentive to the needs and problems that they have and try to be responsive. One thing that some of you know, but a lot of people don't know, is last year during the beginning of the COVID problem, we got, I wanted to talk about something else first. One of the things we did to support the businesses, we used our 3 Northland CAPS interns. We gave them gift cards and asked them to go out and to visit the restaurants in North Kansas City, spend that money in the city, and to take pictures and post it on the social media. And so they did that. It was a pretty good gig for interns that year. When we talk about inform, we have a variety of ways to communicate through our newsletters, e-newsletters, business directory, monthly luncheons, and our website. And I left at your desk a document that shows some of the things we do. The newsletter, the most recent newsletter, a listing of all the destination attractions that we update quarterly, or if not if not more frequently. Hopefully you've all seen that before, front and back. There's a lot. So that's a way we try to keep that in mind. We frequently include that as an insert with the quarterly newsletter. Another thing we did in terms of informing was during the beginnings of the COVID problems, we sent literally about 120 separate email messages to about 1,200 people, getting an open rate of 30 to 40% consistently, talking about sources of PPE and funding and sharing stories that we thought were encouraging of how some businesses had been able to pivot and respond and were doing okay. And that seemed to be quite appreciated. And by connecting, we provide a way for businesses to interact with each other, as well as helping them to be aware of if they come to us with an issue. Hopefully we can tell them who might best be able to solve that problem. We don't claim to have all the answers, but we like to be able to know who to contact, whether it's city council, whether it's with Kim or Anthony or whoever it might be, police department, fire department, to give them some specific connections, and we'll introduce them to them. And it also means connecting for us means being visible and interacting with other organizations that can have some benefit to North Kansas City. We try to keep North Kansas City at top of mind. I'm very active with the Clay County EDC. I've been a part of the Clay County Tourism Advisory Board. We're involved with the Missouri Chamber and the KC SourceLink as examples, and very active with Northland CAPS and the NEBA organization, Northland Education and Business Alliance. So I have a presence with all of those. At this time, Jack Fry is going to give us some additional information.
Thanks, Rich. Thank you. I'm Jack Fry. I'm the past president of the Business Council. We also own a building at 15th and Clay, Fry Park and Playground Equipment, of which I'm the president and an owner and a slave to the business. It's playgrounds, though. It can't be too bad. North Kansas City is a fairly unique community. I grew up here, I went to high school, graduated down here, been here forever, and it hasn't changed dramatically from what it was, though it's changed a lot, I would say, culturally over the last probably 5 to 10 years. But economically, it's got a lot of businesses, and it's got a few residents, and it's always been structured that way. And that makes it unique on how it's broken down and how things are supported. The daytime population of North Kansas City is what, 30,000 people, and the nighttime population is about 5,000 people. And that's because of all the businesses, employees coming into town, working in the businesses, spending money around here, going to the restaurants, and supporting the city in as much as possible. There are approximately 939 business units in North Kansas City, and I believe about 25% of them are members of the Business Council. So as a business council, we've always sought to support that 1,000 businesses that are down here, even though they're not members of us. And that's part of what we rely on the city to help us do, is to connect and inform a lot of those other businesses that are out there. These units, these 1,000 businesses, provide almost 80% of the revenue in North Kansas City. And this really doesn't even take into account some of the gaming funds or the hotel monies coming in for the tax revenues. They're a significant source of the revenue that allows the city to provide a lot of the awesome services that you guys have always provided to the residents over time. And we recognize that. You do a great job of taking care of the streets. You do a great job of servicing the businesses. We've had times, we've been down here long enough that we've been broken into, and the police chief came down, walked us through our property, took his time, and told us ways that we can make our business safer or less prone to get broken into. And those are invaluable services that North Kansas City has always been able to provide, because you do a good job of staffing, hiring, and supporting the community. In 2 weeks, we will be recognizing 34 businesses at our upcoming luncheon at Harris Casino that have made significant investments into our community. These businesses just recently have added 400 more employees to the North Kansas City workforce and an annual new payroll of $16 million, some of which comes right back into the city, through people spending money down here as we're talking about. And that's really the mission of what we do, is we try and promote the business community down here to help build that, to help support the city in revenue and make it an attractive place for businesses to come. And more importantly to me, it's an attractive place for my employees, or for me to hire and bring employees in. People like working here because you've created a unique community and a unique culture down here. This is a breakdown of the different businesses that we have in North Kansas City, or Northtown. The largest segment is services and professionals, which is 344 businesses, and that's really, you're talking lawyers and insurance companies, construction companies, different people offering services. These are mostly small businesses. As I was talking earlier, the historic core of North Kansas City is the industrial sector, which represents approximately 334 businesses, plus the Paseo Industrial District, which we have broke out separately, has a lot of industrial businesses in it also. Then, of course, there is the glamorous group, which gets a lot of the attention and gets a lot of the press, and that's our destination attractions, which is our food, our entertainment, and our beverage industry that we have here. And that's approximately 121, or about 13% of the businesses down here. The final group on here is the health and wellness sector. While it's led by North Kansas City Hospital and Meritas, there are about 69 health and wellness businesses in North Kansas City. So there's a big, viable group of businesses that's created a really strong and healthy business community, and we seek to encourage, grow, and maintain that on behalf of the city. They're very important to the community. All businesses receive some sort of support from the Business Council, whether or not they pay dues to us, and that's part of the agreement that we have with you, with some of the funding that you give us. It allows us to go and support those businesses, even though they're not supporting us. So talking about what that support looks like and what we do, Jason's going to come back up.
Thanks, Jack. All right, I get to talk about money. Let's look at the Business Council's sources of funding. So roughly 50% of our annual income to the Business Council is straight up membership dues. That is the 234-ish businesses that are members of the Business Council provide that funding. After that, another quarter of that comes from proceeds from our events. We have a big event in December, big dinner gala, and then we have a golf tournament in the spring. We have luncheons, things like that. About 20% of the funding, the orange piece of the pie there, is what comes from the city in our contract for services. Then we sublet a little bit of our office space and a few other things that provide some other income for that remaining 5%. What I'm here to talk about is that orange piece of the pie. Folks that are new members of the council probably haven't been around and may not know this, but we were, in years past, we would do things that were on behalf of the business community. The Business Council would coordinate them, things such as the Christmas trees and all of the various services that we provide. And then the vendors for those things would submit invoices to us. We would turn those invoices back over to the city. The city would turn around and pay directly to the vendors. A little bit of a complicated thing, and sometimes resulted in payment taking a while, going through all the systems. So we were approached a couple of years ago and said, we'd like to do this under a contract for services. And so that's how we got where we're at today. The contract for services was meant to cover the $30,000 that was already getting spent on all the other things that the city was paying for directly. So we started out at a $30,000 level, and this is how we break that up. Since the beginning of the contract for services, we've never increased from this level. We have absorbed some of the overage as the Business Council. I won't go through all of the numbers here, but you can see them there. Printed newsletters being a big one. Christmas trees are a big chunk of it. Website and social media costs. I do want to address one thing in there, and that is new website. I did hear in your budget meeting a couple of weeks ago that there was a concern that we had another new website this year. We actually were able to negotiate with the company that built the website to pay for that in 3 equal payments over 3 years. So a little under $5,500 for a website that handles self-management of member resources, e-commerce, and all of those things is actually a pretty good deal. You guys have an RFP out for a website now. You might see that in the pricing that comes to you that actually is a pretty reasonable cost. So last year, the expenses totaled $38,260. $160. The Business Council actually absorbed the 27% overage on that. This year, our funds request is the same amount, and we expect a similar overage. There will be a little bit of a different, if you want to advance the slide, Rich. There will be a little bit of a different way that's divvied up. We'll still have the next year of our website maintenance. We will have a slight reduction in that. We expect Christmas trees to be more already, in case you're unaware, anything involving wood has gotten expensive. But we still intend to absorb those increases. So that's really all I have for you guys. I want to say thank you. We value the opportunity to connect with you, the governing body of North Kansas City. I want to encourage you all to get to know the businesses in your district and the businesses citywide. We, as the Business Council, put on some events that you can attend, but also just getting to know who's out there. There's a lot of people I've talked to who say, I live here, but I don't sleep here, because they spend their days here and operate businesses that contribute to the city. And we all, I don't live here, I live just north of here, but we all have an interest in the success of this city as a whole. So thank you for your time today. I want to open it up for any questions you might have.
Thank you for the presentation. Councilmember comments. Councilmember Roberts.
Thank you for that very in-depth presentation. So my big thing here, which I brought up in the previous meeting, is the newsletters. There's $12,000 spent on newsletters. The newsletter here is 4.5 pages, mostly of things that I've seen in the email that Rich sends out, which is very informative, and it's just kind of a recap. $12,000 is almost a third of what we're allocating you with this budget. And I just honestly see this as a waste of paper, a waste of resources, and quite frankly, a waste of money. Initially, I had suggested reducing to $5,000, but the more I look at this, the more I think about this and see what we're doing here and how this does not actually really fall under economic development. It's not growing and enhancing our businesses or our community. So unless you can maybe shine a light in another way, I'm going to suggest we look to cut that newsletter at least in half, if not in total, just to go green, continue to push people on the email side of things, and save these 4.5 sheets for something better, I think. And maybe it's something we can find later down the road that we can adapt and find a better way for you guys to present this. But I don't see $12,000 on newsletter really doing much for me. I don't know how everybody else feels here, but it's just not much going on with me.
So I think I can address that. One of the reasons to have print media in addition to digital media, especially right now, I think with time you will see that deplete and the value of that go away. Right now, I'm going to sound totally ageist here, and I apologize for that in advance, but the average age of the owners and the decision makers in the businesses that are here is of an age that they're not into social media. They're not into going and reading a website for this information. So getting something printed in front of them helps them to know what's going on that we are absolutely promoting via other methods. The print method is just a way to get that in front of a different audience that doesn't usually see the digital media at all.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't think that any business owner is not using their email. So I still can't see $12,000 on a 4.5-page newsletter really moving the needle for anybody other than just going into the waste bin. It'd be hard pressed to show me a business person that does not use their email consistently, even an older person. And I guess if that's the case, I'm sure that there's a way for them to connect via phone or one of the in-person meetings and find all the same information out that way and not cost $12,000.
Councilmember Smith.
Have you gotten feedback from business owners on the newsletter specifically? Do they read it? Do they enjoy it? Do you hear back from them? Or is it just kind of we send it out and hope that it's making a difference?
I want to let Rich respond to that because I know he has solicited feedback.
Sure.
We have not done a specific survey. On occasion, over the past few years, I've asked some of the same questions. Could we go to less paper, no paper, and totally virtual?
Sure.
And the feedback I get, and it's It's not a scientific sample by any means. I think you ought to keep doing what you're doing. It is on the website. If you go to the website, it opens up. You can read it on the website for sure. It's in both places.
No, and I appreciate that. I'm not really needing scientific data on it. Just curious what you've talked to them about. And your emails have been very helpful, especially when you mentioned you sent out 100 plus of them during the early times of COVID. That was incredible. But to Adam's point, I do think the print media side of things could be scaled back. What that number is, I'm not sure. Whether it's tapering off to a one-pager or just going digital with your emails that get great reach, incredible open rates, putting a link to what you have there and getting it in front of them that way. Just my thoughts on that. I did also have a follow-up question on the website social media side of things. So you mentioned giving some gift cards to the interns and having them go out and sample and post. Sounds like a great initiative. My concern with that is I follow almost to a fault everything going on with North Kansas City on social media, and I didn't see any of that. So if it's going out there, I'm not sure who is seeing it or what sort of engagement you're getting. But to see, I think it was like roughly $7,000 on website and social media. What benefit are we getting from that? What are you seeing from your social media?
I'm confident that the social media those young people posted on was the social media that they frequent and not necessarily what you would see here.
Okay.
And that $7,000 that you saw in that line down there includes two things, totaling about $6,500. One is the license to use Chamber Master Growth Zone for our database, and then the 1/3 of the 3-year commitment on the new website. And I hope that you have all seen that website, and we'll take it.
Is that the Explorer NKC?
No, this is nkcbusinesscouncil.com.
Okay. Now, there's the Chamber Master at $3,700 and the new website 3-year at $1,788, and then there's another bullet that says other website and social media costs $6,958. Is that something entirely separate than?
No, I perhaps have misstated that a little bit, but most of that is, we have some recurring monthly. In the past, we did have, okay, that's where that came from. In the past, we were paying a gentleman about $975 a month to take care of the old website and to post things. And one of the benefits of the new website is we're able to do that now, and we don't need that service, so we don't pay him anymore.
Okay.
So upcoming, it's less,
I'm gonna,
a lot less.
can we put that slide back up with their expenditures?
Yeah, the use of allocation of the city funds.
He did a smart thing. He took a picture. I'm just guessing here.
Yeah, I took a picture while the
I
slide
don't know
was
who's
up.
got that control.
I'm sorry, what was
There it
Right,
is.
right, perfect, right there, right there.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
that's what I'm referencing. You've got the Chamber Master new website broken out, and I appreciate the explanation of the 3-year amortization on that. It's the other website and social media costs that I'm questioning. Is that related to Explore NKC and having someone manage social media? And the reason I ask is because I'm very into what's going on social media, and I just haven't seen anything there.
Explore NKC is not a part of this contract for service.
Okay. Okay, so that's something else.
Yes.
The other website costs. Okay.
Councilmember, I'm sorry, did you want to add to that first, and then?
I think I can add to that we have changed up the budget a little bit, so you see a little bit of the crossover between the old way and the new way in last year's budget, because we paid for some of the build-out of the new website, but we were also paying for a contractor for much of the year to maintain updates to the old website.
Okay, so
that piece is going down some. We have some other budget items that are going up.
Okay, so the trees will go up, the website and social costs will go down.
Yes.
And then the last question I had, if you could elaborate on the staff time piece, it's 10% of 90, is it 10% of 95,000 that staff?
Essentially, that's our total staff cost, including benefits and such.
Okay,
And we can pretty easily, in fact, I think, Rich, did you have a breakdown of what the staff cost is? But that is the organization, honestly, a big chunk of that is getting Christmas trees out, getting everybody there to to decorate them and stuff like that. That's a November, December timeframe.
Sure.
And then keeping the websites and stuff up to date, the internal pieces of that the business council staff does. Did you want to add to that?
That number is my salary plus Paula's salary plus the withholding additional beyond that.
Okay,
That's the total of that.
that's how it breaks out. And are you both just full-time with this, or how does that?
Paula is about 80%,
Okay.
and I'm 100%.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Clevenger.
A couple of things. Thank you for breaking it down, especially on the website. That's what I had questions on, and as far as the maintenance and how you'll be able to maintain that basically yourself and post events. And, you know, another question that I had that's pretty much been answered is about the quarterly newsletter. And with the feedback you've got, it seems like some businesses still read the quarterly. I would eventually like to see us go more green and, you know, push people more to the online, or maybe doing it semi-annual instead of quarterly. But right now, you know, you've got people trained with the quarterly, you got the emails and the print. So I think that's maybe a discussion to have for future contract negotiations in the future. But for right now, I certainly don't want to pull the rug out in front of you and, you know, make sure that, you know, you've absorbed costs above the 30,000 anyway. But just something to look at in the future as far as maybe going a little bit more green.
One thing I didn't mention, but in that copy of the newsletter you have there does not have any other inserts in it, but it does offer an opportunity for members to have an insert to promote their business. And typically we have anywhere from 2 to 4 each quarter. They pay a little bit of money and they provide the copies. And we
Councilmember
include
Robert.
that for them
I'm
as a
sorry.
benefit.
Sorry, I cut you off there. You good? Anything else to add, Rich, on that? Okay, Councilmember Roberts.
I would still suggest, I guess, adding on to Councilmember Clevenger and Smith's statements here. With the newsletter, I think there's things we could save right now. We can go black and white ink, which saves a tremendous amount. We can go not glossy, which saves money. It's not as pretty, but you can also go on your renewal sign-ups. You can go to an opt-in newsletter rather than everybody gets it, and that'll heavily reduce this, especially given his high email opening rates. So maybe we go to 100 you need every quarter that are black and white and, you know, not this high glossy cost. So I think we can pull the rug out right now, and I think we should pull the rug out, and we should be going to green now. We can't keep pushing this off into the future. This is $12,000 for newsletters, guys. This is kind of absurd. I'm going to suggest we cut it down to $8,000 for newsletters. Cut $8,000 out, sorry, and keep $4,000, and suggest you guys go black and white, not glossy, opt-in only, and really try to optimize your email and push everybody that way. And really, let's move into the green. And that's a great way you can push. You have one more newsletter this year. You can prepare everybody next year, get them to opt in when they renew, and let them know that next year you're going to be going green. And that's a great thing for everybody to be a part of.
Councilmember Graves.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. I really enjoy the North Kansas City Business Council. You've been an integral part of the community, and as a newer member of the City Council, I have attended the majority of your events, including your golf tournament. I have firsthand knowledge of how dedicated you are to serving the business community. And in your presentation, you stated that your goals are to support, inform, and connect. And I can tell you firsthand that you have informed me on a great many topics concerning the business community. And I've witnessed firsthand that you connect people. So when we have new businesses open up, they highlight the new businesses, they bring people in, they connect businesses with other businesses in the community so that we can all synergize and work together. As mentioned, what did you say the percentage of our revenue coming in North Kansas City is from businesses? You say is 80%, give or take?
Give or take. Those are conservative estimates.
And so we're talking about an organization that's working on a shoestring budget with two employees that has a tremendous impact on our community, not just the business community, but keep in mind that as residents, we get benefits from these businesses, even ones that aren't entertainment, fun places like industrial businesses, paying taxes that then pay to support our residents' amenities. And so I want to thank you guys for what you're doing on such a small budget, and I am not along the lines of nitpicking what you're spending money on, and I would hate to see your budget decreased in any way and force you to look at cutting corners. In fact, I would go the opposite route, and it's probably because I've attended, I would say, 90% of your events since I've been on the council, and so I know how powerful what you're doing, the impact that you're making, and I would actually propose increasing your budget up to $35,000, which would still be under, you guys spent $38,160 last year, beyond the $30,000 allocated by the city on these items. And you were saying that, there's places where costs could be decreased a little bit. Instead of narrowing your budget, I would actually be in favor of expanding it. And also, Rich, your email, summaries after council meetings are extremely powerful. You do a great job on that. Rich watches every city council meeting, no matter how boring they are, sends a summary to all of the business owners. And then when you go to these meetings, the business owners can come up to you as a council person and say, I'm aware of what took place at this meeting. Here's how it affects me. The reason that they're aware of what's taking place in the city and the way that they're connected with me, a representative, is through this NKC Business Council, through Rich. And so I want to thank you guys. I commend you. You do a fantastic job. We're lucky to have you. And I would increase your budget if it was up to me to $35,000, if not more. So thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Okay, so first off, nobody is disparaging the Business Council. We really appreciate what you do. We think it's wonderful. To Wes's point, though, this is a contract for services. We are giving money, and it is our task to look down what is being used and see if there are efficiencies and things that we can do collaboratively to find ways to trim that number back if need be. And I think Adam has made a good point about the printed newsletter and the green direction we could go. I was asking questions about social media costs and benefits and potential redundancies. It sounds like those numbers are coming down anyway. So I see that we're at $38,160. If we cut off some of the printed newsletter costs and we saw the social media costs drop off, we're looking at right around back of the napkin math, $30,000 that it would be total, and we would be funding all of that. So I don't have a number in mind right now. Adam sounds like he has kind of a number going, and Wes has another number. So I would like to hear what number we're looking for.
Councilmember Clevenger, Councilmember Toll.
A couple of things. Definitely wanted to echo Wes's comments. He said it very well about the Business Council. I've attended a lot of your events as well. And the networking and when Rich sent the emails out during the COVID, absolutely imperative for a lot of those businesses to know what was going on. As far as the newsletter, the glossy, I think that's not recyclable anyway. So that's something that, I would take a look at, because we want something that, if we're going green, to be recyclable. As far as black and white, for me, that sounds cheap and cutting corners. So, I wouldn't want you to do that as far as, I would want color, I would think. So, people are throwing numbers around. I'm not in favor of really reducing the budget at this time, working with you to be more cost-effective and, doing that in the future. But at least 30,000, if not, I know Wes threw out 35,000, but I'd at least want to do 30.
Councilmember Toll.
I was just going to say about the newsletter. I agree. I think it's beautiful, but it's so beautiful on your website too. And your website, hopefully ours will be like this in the future. It's very easy to navigate, and I feel like it's visually appealing. So it is very easy to find the online version of this. So I'm thinking the opt-in for the print newsletter might be a great idea. It's not, it's obviously not our job to make those decisions for you, but it may affect how much money needs to go towards newsletters when you have a really well planned out website that's super easy to find things.
We've had those internal discussions the last several years on digital versus print, and you guys are absolutely right. I think one point that was lost that's important to understand is that the newsletter is not really intended for our members. It's intended for all the other businesses that aren't our members. So the purpose of that newsletter is to communicate what's going on with the city, what's going on with different businesses, and help promote the business community to those other businesses so they understand what a good community it is. So it's as much of a marketing piece as an information piece. So, well, you guys' points are dead on. We're always arguing that. In a business, where do you spend your money? What's important? Where do you get your impact? But I just want to make sure that point was understood, that 75% of those newsletters go to non-members of the Business Council.
Councilmember Graves.
This will be really quick, just 2 quick points. First of all, do not cut the Business Council's budget during COVID. And then I think that's obvious. I don't think I need to expand on that. It's a fragile time economically. Don't mess with this budget. And then 2, I would just like to point out that I talk about this all the time. People digest information differently. You touched on it earlier. I believe as Mr. Fry touched on the fact that, baby boomers might digest information differently than, millennials. Not everyone checks Facebook. Not everyone checks websites. Some people do prefer paper. And so I do like the newsletter, and I do like the idea of maybe asking, people whether they want to opt in or not. However, that your point being that you're trying to reach other businesses outside of the council, that kind of deletes that argument. And so I understand where you're going with the newsletter, and I would actually be in favor of increasing your budget and seeing what else you guys can do to expand your operation. Instead of looking to trim in the time of COVID, I think you should be looking to do more and to expand. And so that's where my mind's at, because I know you're doing great work, and I want to see what else you can do. Thank you.
Councilmember, I'm sorry, I pointed at Roberts, then I'll get you.
A couple of things. So I think we can get to the 30,000 number, but I don't think going over it. I think you could cut that newsletter. If 70+% are non-members, I think maybe you make a non-member newsletter specific and do that 2 times a year maybe. Because that's 70% people who may or just be throwing that away immediately and not looking at it. I know I receive them. I do look at them, but I also know I already get all this in an email. So I honestly see it, and I'm like, I have nothing to do with this. I can't recycle it, so it just goes in the trash because I've already seen it. And I'm certain a lot of people do that. And that's 70% of your budget you're wasting. So maybe you could utilize that money elsewhere, to Wes's point. So maybe that's something you could find use somewhere else. But we are expanding our economic development, Wes. We're increasing Visit KC, which is an enormous reach in our region, the biggest reach in our region, something that they cannot do because they don't have the staff or capacity to do that. We're also increasing other measures during COVID to help small businesses that are things that they simply can't function to do. They have 1 3/4 of a person. So we can't really, if we're going to up their budget, we'd have to give them like 60 grand to hire somebody. So 5 grand's not going to do much more. So I think we can hold at 30 grand if that social media is going to come down, if we can trim that newsletter down. And just looking at, again, green initiatives, trying to save you guys time, optimize your stuff. Let's look at using that 70% number efficiently and not seeing a bunch of this in waste bins, especially if they're not becoming customers of yours, right? If they're not becoming memberships or members at all, you're just, giving them free things, I guess. So I think 30,000 we can hold at this, given those 2 reductions. I don't know if we're going to get 38,000, but surely we're always open to hearing new ideas, especially if you're getting rid of that $12,000 budget and that social media, but maybe you have a great new idea. So I'm certain we're all open to hearing that because, again, we're all big fans of the Business Council here, Wes. I think we really like, and as a business owner for 10 years, Rich has been tremendous. He's always been there for everybody, and he's a tremendous resource. So nobody's doubting what the Business Council does here. And to Wesley, Councilmember Smith's point, we just have to look at the budget and also have to be collaborative with you all to find better ways forward when it comes, to our collaboration as a city and the Business Council.
That's the point of this whole contract, is to enable us to collaborate. So, yeah.
As a side note, I do believe that the newsletter is specifically called out in the contract for services. Is that true, Kim? So we may need to change that language a bit if we're not going to send a newsletter to every member of every business.
That's in the.
So the contract for services that is in front of the council right now has 30,000 in it.
Okay, but
For
are the
quarterly-
newsletters called out specifically to go to
Yeah,
every
a
business?
quarterly printed newsletter layout, printing, and mailing.
Okay.
That's what's included.
I just want to make sure that the guidance from the council makes it into the contract if necessary to so we can meet the language that's there.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, and I would agree with 30,000, keeping it at 30,000, which is kind of where we've ended up every time we've had this discussion for forever. So I think that's a good way to go. Now that you've mentioned you've had these discussions internally of possibly reducing print media, it sounds like the wheels are already turning. And hopefully when we come back next year to discuss this, some of those numbers are down, maybe some of the other ones are up. And just to put a kind of a finer point on this isn't their entire budget. Like, you guys have roughly 150,000 in revenue based on the pie chart. Is that right? So this isn't the whole budget. It's not like we're talking about cutting off a huge chunk of what they do. I think that we keep supporting and keep, collaborating. So I would move to approve at 30,000 and amend the language to allow them to make some calls on the print media.
Second.
There's a first and a second on the amended motion there.
It's all been said.
Councilmember Clark?
Now it's
Yep.
all been said. I just agree. I wouldn't want to bring it any lower than 30 at this point. That's not the right step to take. I think our suggestions have been made, and I think everyone's listened. And I think we're in the right direction now.
Okay.
On that motion, can you be more specific, like,
Yeah, I would just remove the reference to quarterly and let them decide. If quarterly continues to be what you decide, that's what you do. And then we can have this discussion next year. If you go with an opt-in, or if you go with a semi-annually or a different model, you decide. We're not experts in this, so.
thank you.
All right, is the second still good on that with the amendment? Okay.
So just for clarification, real quick, we're removing the word quarterly in front of printed on Exhibit A.
Motion is to amend, removing the time period of quarterly.
Are there other specifics on it? I can't see.
Sorry, I got it in like super private. In terms of the newsletter, no, it just refers to a quarterly printed newsletter, layout, printing, and mailing. So I think you would achieve the objective by just removing the
Just
word
removing quarterly, and then we'll trust your judgment.
quarterly. Yeah. Perfect. Now do we have it? There we go. Is there any further council member comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? No. Motion carries. Thank you for the presentation. I thank you guys for all you do.
Thank you all.
Thank you for your support.
Number 16.
16, discussion regarding sidewalk eating and alcohol consumption licenses.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a discussion item. In fact, this is some of the discussion items that you will hopefully see on your agenda moving forward. Some of the feedback that we had heard from the strategic planning session was more discussion items before things come forward for formal adoption or action from the City Council. So this is kind of the first of a couple that are on this particular agenda. We have been asked to look at our sidewalk eating and alcohol consumption licenses. So this will be kind of an open forum. I am going to hand it over to Sarah Copeland and Major Mark Smith, as well as the city's liquor control officer, or city's director of liquor control, John Harburger, is also here this evening. So with that, Sarah, can you please kick off our discussion?
Well, to start with the end of the memo tonight, there are really two questions where we're looking for some council direction this evening. One is whether the criteria for which businesses qualify to obtain a sidewalk dining and alcohol consumption license should be changed, and if so, whether you would like to change any of the regulations that apply to businesses that have a permit for sidewalk dining. So sidewalk dining is regulated by Chapter 4.30 of the Municipal Code that sets out who qualifies to get one of these licenses and then what regulations they have to follow for those. Section 4.30.020 says that to qualify for one of these licenses, at least 50% of the eating or drinking establishment's gross income for the preceding year must be derived from the sale of prepared foods or prepared meals, food consumed on the premises, or the sale of tickets for motion picture performances. And we have had an inquiry recently from a business who's not able to meet those qualifications about changing that to allow them to obtain one of these licenses. There is, a lot of background in the memo, but that's the basic question here. There have been some changes to state law regarding liquor licensing in the past year related to the pandemic. We now allow, the sale of cocktails to go, or sales by the drink that's not in its original packaging. We had a discussion beginning of last week or the week before about other changes. John John Harbrooker has mentioned to staff that the state's been moving away from requiring food sales in conjunction with liquor licensing. So the question for you is that if, how can we make this change if you're interested? And we have some ideas about that, but we need to start with getting your direction on whether you would like to see a change made at all. From a staff level, we're very concerned about, there is definitely a benefit to sidewalk dining. It promotes activity on the street, especially in downtown. That's a benefit. But we are also very concerned about people walking away from businesses with open containers, getting into cars with alcohol. Those two things don't mix very well. And so we do have some concerns about that and want to make sure that it's done in a safe way. So I'll stop there for any comments or questions that you might have for staff.
Thank you, Councilmember Roberts.
As somebody who has one of these licenses, I could kind of talk a little bit about this firsthand. They're great. I think, first of all, I think city sidewalks should be utilized for cafes, and it's weird to limit people to certain things yes, certain things no. Downtown Kansas City, of course, has made their parklets, for the most part, permanent, and they're terrific. I don't believe there's been an increase in people just getting in the cars drinking or utilizing the open container more than there already were. Certainly, I think we have a little easier time to regulate that way with our businesses here and our great police force. I think it's much easier than Kansas City, Missouri. There are some things that I've always thought were kind of absurd in these rules, like washing the sidewalk every day, for example, which I don't believe I've seen anybody do in North Kansas City, but that's part of the regulation. I think that could come off. I think the sound systems could be adjusted. I think there's already people that utilize them anyways. I think when we have live music that you could hear, blocks and blocks, miles away, actually, from where they're performing, it's kind of funny that we don't allow businesses to play quiet music outside their establishments. And then the hours of operations, I think we could go a little bit later on Fridays and Saturdays. I think going till 11 on those nights is perfectly acceptable. Those are the busiest bar nights of the week, so I think we should be encouraging people to buy and stay at facilities a little bit longer. And then with cocktails to go, I think that was a great thing for the few businesses here that did utilize it. I can only think of 2 that did, but I know that it really, truly did help them sustain during their full closures. On the broad scale, it's really helped bars in Kansas City, Missouri, and I think we should be, similar. This is the one time I would say we should follow Missouri's direction in something, which is, I think that the cocktails to go is actually a great forward-thinking thing, and it would be, I think, funny for us not to do that when Kansas City is doing it and Missouri is also allowing it. But I think that's really it. I mean, the rest is, good, and I think we should allow anybody to get these licenses. I think those regulations were always kind of funny. The 50% one in particular with food is kind of funny. But yeah, I think anybody should be able to get them. And those are all my notes. There you go. I'm done.
Following Missouri always sounds like a trap. Councilmember Smith.
I'll echo much of that. So looking through section 4.30, there's a couple things that stuck out to me. So the inconsistencies between the timelines with the parklets and the sidewalk cafes is confusing because you can go till midnight with a parklet, but you can only go till 10 p.m. with a sidewalk cafe, unless I'm reading. I see Sarah squinting. Let me make sure I'm pulling that up correctly.
I was going to say these should be the same.
4.30-085 had the hours of operation until E14, permissible hours should be 7 a.m. to midnight. I think we changed that after the fact. We pushed it to midnight. But it's midnight here in the rule. And sidewalk cafes are 10 p.m., just above it. So that's something I would like to see synced up.
I would point out that there is a difference. The sidewalk dining is allowed throughout the city, and the parklets theoretically could be allowed throughout the city anywhere where there are on-street parking spaces.
Correct.
So you do have, I believe there's one business that's not in downtown that has a sidewalk dining permit. You might not necessarily want that to be till midnight if you lived next door.
Okay, I think I know who you're referencing. And to be fair, I'm not sure that anybody would be opposed to it, but maybe they would. Somebody would. But I would, honestly, I'd like to see those synced up, whether it's moving everything to 11 or pushing everything out till midnight. That's a discussion.
We do plan to come back to you to discuss parklets later this fall. Right now, this will end at the end of October. So the question tonight is really just about sidewalk dining, because we'll have another discussion about parklets in the future.
Okay. So I'm in favor. I think as a policy, it creates a lively streetscape. I think it's something that we should encourage, and I'd really like to see it move forward. And then with the hours discussion that we'll have later, if parklets have been allowed until midnight for a while now, have there been, I mean, you could speak to a liquor controller, the police officers, have you seen any issues happening at the midnight hour with the parklets?
No, I have not.
I'm probably the worst offender.
Well, yes.
I'm still here.
That's all from me.
Okay, further discussion, and I'll just remind everyone, kind of really two questions here, and then I'll get on you there. It's do we want to remove the food and ticket sales requirement or otherwise change the qualification criteria? And is there any other regulations would want to add or potentially remove? Councilmember Saper.
Just to add to the discussion a bit, the public parking lots, sidewalks, parking spaces on the streets are all the people's assets. And during COVID, we essentially gave them away to various businesses so they could survive. It seems to me that there's been a lot of federal money that's come in lately over the last few months to both the cities and to private businesses. And I think that kind of emergency giveaway is probably not called for in the future. And we should think of what the value of those assets are, the people's assets, and start asking private businesses to pay for them, at least partially.
I would add that if they're generating sales, they're going to be generating some sort of sales tax to the benefit of the community.
Well, but those sales taxes aren't
that's-
paid by businesses.
Yeah,
People
other
forget
people
that they're
consuming.
paid by the people who use them.
Correct, facilitated
Not the
by
businesses.
Facilitated by the businesses, though. If the businesses weren't there, there'd be none. But, no, I get your point as well. Thank you.
It's a valuable city asset
Yeah.
that we couldn't actually
Just be concerned,
charge some rental for.
I mean, some of these areas would otherwise, to my best, I don't know where all we're talking about, but many of them are already underutilized or unutilized, and this could generate something for the city. Councilmember Robertson, I'll get Councilmember Graves.
To answer your point, Councilmember Saper, there are fees already associated with licensing. If I recall, that we do pay liquor license fees, both state and city and county. And then I believe there was a sidewalk cafe permit as well.
It's $100.
Yes, so people that are applying do have to pay something.
We could raise those because that certainly doesn't cover the value of the asset.
Well, so, they are required to carry insurance as well with the city listed as an insurer. So that they are protecting the city's assets and paying for it. We're talking relatively small real estate in front of these businesses' properties that's, again, generating sales tax. And I think it should hopefully be clear that just because people can drink outside, that doesn't mean this is going to become a party everywhere. That this is oftentimes, maybe I want to join the mayor for a beer, but he's going to have a coffee, and it's 11 o'clock, and now I have to have nothing. And so that's a loss of sale, which is a loss of sales tax, which is, an increase in business for that particular business. And it does work a lot like that because we do see people that just won't buy anything if they can't go out and do something, or they'll go 2 miles away where they can do this exact particular thing that we're talking about. But to answer your point, yes, we should remove the 50% if that's the top line question.
That's one, yep. Councilmember Graves.
So the answer to the question, yes, we should remove the food 50% limit, and there's a multitude of reasons for that. First of all, we are, as previously mentioned, in COVID, and we need to do everything possible to help our local businesses. And I've met there's a local business owner that's actually directly referenced in this memo that told me to my face that when we do a mask order, their business, it's like flicking a switch. Their rate of business just decreases instantly. And I personally go out less nowadays because I try to, if I do go out, I want to go somewhere where I can sit outside. and I don't drink, and but I hang out with people that drink, and I'm a retired party animal. And what I would suggest doing as a city council that would help our local businesses and help us create a vibrant downtown area is to remove the food requirement and allow businesses to seat patrons outside where they're more safe and comfortable. There's fresh air. We are in a COVID environment. I think we should also do this as quickly as possible. I don't suggest talking about this until December. It's now football season. It's fall. It's nice outside. I think we should put a rush on this, and let's create a vibrant downtown area. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Councilmember Roberts.
This is a question, I think, for Sarah. Is it a Missouri thing that they have to have a barrier, or is that our thing?
I believe that that's a state liquor license thing. John's nodding his head.
I've asked on that before. What defines a barrier? Because I think we farther define a barrier
Well, and
more so than what the state
additionally, is that only if they're drinking? Like, if I wanted to have a cafe but I don't serve alcohol, do I still have to have the barrier, or is that only for alcohol control?
I can only speak for the state of Missouri. First off, my name is John Harbrucker, and I am the director for the alcohol licensing. I don't really want to get too in-depth into the state because I don't want to speak for them because I can't, fully say what it is, but they were at one time requiring a barrier around there, but I could tell you it was loosely enforced. So with the state of Missouri, I think it was in their requirements, but they weren't really doing anything about it.
If we can, Sarah, can we see if it's possible, if anything's changed with the state on that? Because I know that is a hindrance for some people, is like, what is this barrier? What is the cost of building the barrier?
That's what's good. Is it a fence? Are you referring to, could it be?
There's so many different
Could it be a potted plant? Could it be a
I've
vine?
seen people have the velvet ropes. I'm sure that I've seen people with the potted planters and things like that.
And then
Chapter
additionally,
430 does not require the barrier. It references the barrier and where the barrier can't be more than 4 feet. You have to have 4 feet of clearance for pedestrians. But it doesn't require the barrier. That's required by the liquor licensing.
if that's no longer a thing in Missouri, I think we should remove it, because I know that that's always been a thing that I've heard from business owners, is they don't know what to build it with or the cost of building it. Especially, I think, for people applying for a sidewalk cafe without a liquor license, I think that they should absolutely be able to put like a table in front of a coffee shop, for example, without having to build this barrier. So if we could find out that information too for the sidewalk cafes without liquor license, and with, just because I know that is kind of a weird hindrance, potentially, if it's a state thing, it's a state thing. So thank you.
What I'm hearing so far is just remove it down to 0 food requirement, 0 ticket sales requirement. I mean, does the PD have anything else to add to that, or I mean, is that?
I just want to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, if you don't mind, when I discussed this with Chief Freeman last week, he is not in favor of allowing bars to operate on the sidewalks. For probably many obvious reasons, we have a lot of concern about alcohol consumption and people being disorderly on our sidewalks because they're at a bar. And I don't think he would be in favor of allowing bars to operate on the sidewalk.
Sarah, did you want to mention the kitchen?
Yeah, so one suggestion that we continued to do some research into this after the agenda was finalized last week. One suggestion we would have is to look to Clay County Health Department's licensing of food establishments. They have 4 different levels of food establishment licensing. One is food service low. I mean, it's food service low, food service medium, and then there's moderate and high. The food service low is basically the license that you would have if all you're doing is making ice and serving drinks. Food service medium requires you to have a full kitchen. So one suggestion we would have is to change the criteria to require for sidewalk dining that you have a food service medium food establishment permit from Clay County Health Department, which would restrict this to places that have a full kitchen.
Okay, so there's that additional. Go ahead, Councilmember Roberts.
So Most businesses do have the medium. Like, it pretty much, I don't know anybody that has a low. I'm sure there exists, but from talking to the health, when they changed the rules a couple of years ago in Clay County, virtually everyone falls into that now. So it wouldn't really limit a lot of businesses. However, if you're requiring food, I guess we go back to, we're potentially blocking out businesses just because they could serve. I've been to a lot of other cities where they do this because they have to serve food. They have beef jerky and Chex Mix at the bar, and that falls under food, and would put them in that moderate consumption, or they have a popcorn machine or something like that. That's usually why you see those in bars, is so they can meet these weird requirements. And I think we would just get people doing stuff like that to get on that health code level. But I also don't see just debauchery happening in Kansas City, Missouri, because they have a table on the sidewalk. And I don't, with all due respect to Chief Freeman, I think that we're capable of controlling 2 or 3 tables, because we have to remember these are just in front of the businesses. Most businesses only have 10 or 15 feet. You're talking 2 or 3 tables. We're not talking a raging party outside. And I surely, but if we're restricting to 10 o'clock, I don't think we're going to have this crazy thing happening that is in everybody's mind. I think that, and I believe the council really thinks this to be a good thing. And I think if we're, if that makes him feel better, stopping at 10 o'clock. But I've never seen issues downtown with this, especially when you're talking what kind of businesses we have here, which is small businesses with a couple tables at most. But I certainly don't want to make people just jump up in this food requirement just by putting a popcorn machine or something in there, because it is relatively easy to be in that standard. Like,
It's all told in Smith.
If we were to open it up without a food requirement, could we leave it would make sense to me that you leave the barrier requirement if you sell alcohol. Just because for me, visually, as somebody that might be sitting outside, then I'll know, you know what, I can't just walk down the street with this plastic glass of beer. Like the having the barrier there, if you're serving alcohol, would help me as a customer to know where I'm supposed to be.
Councilmember Smith.
So a few things that I'm hearing from out here that it seemed not to have landed back this way. Did you say that the barrier is a state requirement for alcohol control?
Yes.
Okay, so
or if it's, I don't know if it's been removed in the last few years, but at one time it was a requirement.
Okay, so if it is still a requirement, we couldn't take it off. But if it's not, then we could explore what that looks like. The second one was, you said the Clay County piece, they'd have to have a full kitchen, not just a popcorn machine or something to hit that qualification. Okay, so to your point, they couldn't just put a popcorn machine in and qualify. But I'm thinking of a place like Mitch Amaro, who I would like to be able to see a table outside or a little railing, and you could have a craft cocktail and sit outside and enjoy yourself. And they have no food. They would be low-grade food service, ice and drinks. So I would honestly, again, with all due respect to Chief Freeman, I think we go with removing the movie ticket sales and the food requirements and open this up to allow businesses to operate.
All right, further discussion? Okay, Councilmember Graves.
How quickly can we do this?
So I'll tag that one. Like I said, tonight is just a discussion item. I would have to get the city's counselor to see what his timetable is, if this could be brought to at the next council meeting or the council meeting after. But just to kind of recap, so to remove the food, but keep the 10 o'clock.
Are we discussing the 10 o'clock?
I have heard, yes, correct. Removing the food and ticket sales requirement. And on timing.
I would like.
Why don't we keep the 10 and see how it
Keeping
goes?
10. Keeping 10, keeping
Someone
10.
honoring Chief Freeman's feedback to say, what are you doing to me?
Go ahead, Councilmember Graves.
I guess I don't understand the 10 o'clock question. Like, if you have a liquor license, you just can't be on the sidewalk after 10 o'clock? So they're
Correct.
like, hey, come inside. So as not to disturb neighboring properties, essentially.
And I'm channeling my inner Chief Freeman here, who, by the way, is actually attending a continuing education class. That is where Chief Freeman is right now. We kind of talked about continuing education, and our chief of police falls underneath that category as well. His concerns are after 10 o'clock, trouble starts to happen. So that is why he would like to keep that 10 o'clock. That way they go back inside of that establishment. Again, a lot of it, some of the concerns that Chief Freeman did express is that span and control, that loss of liquor exchanging hands when perhaps an officer is not there. That's why the barrier is kind of required. It kind of signals drinks are allowed on this side of the sidewalk, not that side of the sidewalk. But yes, 10 o'clock was definitely one of the things he raised a lot of concern about, at least on the sidewalk dining, understanding the parklet has its own fence, and we'll revisit that at a future time. But his concern was definitely not so much the small mom and pop businesses, but more of what you would be considered a tavern. That is definitely where his concern levels are.
Councilmember Roberts.
I can maybe answer something real quick. So the Missouri Alcohol and Tobacco Laws of 2021 does not have a barrier for sidewalks anymore. So it appears we don't need it. I will say, like, I understand the barrier as a guide, but we have to remember the barriers have to have an opening, and it does not stop anybody from walking out. It doesn't really do anything other than increase cost and work and upkeep. I mean, I have them, and they're often used as like a place for seating, but oftentimes they're not. And people can still, if the concern is somebody walking out with liquor, I don't think that having a rope in front of them, to have a rope in front of them, is going to stop them from walking out. I also don't think it's going to stop them from handing it to somebody else. I think that's going to happen, you know, the same as if they walk out of a business, which still does happen. You know, we all try to stop them from doing it, but every once in a while somebody's going to sneak a beer out, and that's unfortunate, but it's going to happen. So I don't know how everybody feels here, but, you know, we could talk with Chief Freeman about it, but it's not going to, it won't really stop anything. It's just going to add additional burden to businesses. And to Councilmember Graves' point, if we're trying to reduce some of that burden, I think we need to consider, like, maybe the 10 o'clock thing is the burden. Again, most of these places are going to have 2 to 4 tables outside their businesses, and I think that they can manage them. I think the bigger businesses that we're maybe concerned about, I think already have things like bouncers and security that help control these matters. But even then, I'm sure that we see people somehow get outside those big protected barriers with alcohol. Just my point as I'm quickly looking at this and kind of answering some points.
Okay, so trying to wrap some of this up a little bit. Obviously, I think we're at 0 now. 0 food, okay. Staff direction good there. Exploring barrier and the definition of that, or if that exists anymore, a little bit farther.
I see.
And anything else staff is looking for direction specifically on this?
I don't think so.
You got something new to add? Councilmember Clevenger.
No, just my take on the barrier. I understand both sides of it. Don't want to burden businesses anymore. However, I think it's just more like a psychological and a visual thing. So I would be in favor of some sort of a barrier still.
Councilmember Smith indicated he's got something new to add.
Yeah, I do. So we've had like a year-long case study with the parklets in the downtown corridor, at least. We've had Adam, his business has had one, and we've had another one down at Cultivar. I'm curious if we can do a corridor overlay and change the hours downtown to a midnight versus anywhere else would have to be a 10 p.m. Is that a thing that would work? Because if we're concerned about noise around or things getting unruly, we haven't seen issues with the parklets at midnight in the downtown corridor, and there's not noise just getting out. It seems arbitrary to have people have to walk inside the door at 10 p.m. downtown. So if there's a way we could overlay, you know, certain blocks of Armour, certain blocks of Swift, that we would allow this as we define a downtown corridor and make the hours go later. Something to look into for the next meeting and discussion.
I think we would need a little bit more direction specifically on Swift as a result of, we are having residential that will be, you know, Swift will soon have people who live there.
Right.
So I think that, at least from the staff side, we would like some street-to-street understanding of what an area to define within that code would be, with the understanding, again, that, you know, those areas are starting to have residents involved.
Right. And I mean, off the top of my head, I'm looking at 18th to 23rd and then along Armour.
Councilmember Graves.
I can speak to that because that's in my ward, and I do get complaints regularly about outside noise on the weekends. So from residents, it might just come to me. Anthony might hear it too. But yes, I'm not going to name businesses, but yes, it does affect residences. So I'm in favor of the outdoor lifting restrictions, creating a vibrant downtown. But I actually like the idea of having a time limit. I like the 10 p.m. curfew, come inside, quiet down. I like that.
I mean, the noise complaints you're hearing are not from sidewalk cafes. They're from live music out back, right? That's not
That
gonna
and
change.
other activities that I don't want to put people on the spot or name businesses and things of that nature, but not just bands. But I live at 23rd and Gentry, and I can hear downtown from my backyard. Like if I'm sitting outside on a Friday night smoking a cigar, I can hear downtown from my house. So I can tell you that if that's going on at midnight, then people will be very unhappy in Ward 3.
Further discussion. Okay, I mean, you have enough, minus cross streets there, you got enough guidance on the main part. We could further discuss if we wanted to an overlay, but sounds like you got the direction on this specific item you need.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Next item, please.
Number 17, discussion regarding moving the November 16th, 2021 meeting to November 23rd, 2021.
And I'm going to go out of order real quick. I want to thank John for coming out this evening. I know we don't see you very often up here, at least on council, so thank you for coming out this evening. I guess I could take this next item. So this November 16th meeting is going to land on the National League of City Summit, and there's going to be several members of the governing body going out to that. So I've asked Kim to look at alternative dates, to look at moving the November 16th meeting, because we still need to have a meeting to pay bills. As Crystal will always tell me, make sure everyone gets paid, make sure our vendors get paid. So this will just move it back.
I move to move the meeting.
There we go. There's a motion to move the meeting in a second.
I won't be here.
You won't be here.
But
For
I
which
think I'll
one?
be the only one that won't be here.
The
For
16th or 23rd?
The 23rd. The 16th, I thought, are you guys going early to the Utah conference? Because it's the 18th through the 20th.
Hold on. I had this up the other day.
There's a, Wednesday, there, it's an option to go on Wednesday. So people would go could we move it to the Monday before? Or is that a bad idea?
Monday would work for me. But if I'm the only one.
There's stuff there early the 17th. That was why. Early Wednesday. Because there's federal advocacy committee meetings, mobile workshops. I mean, there are all kinds of things that like negative day one, I guess. Gotcha. That was why, to get out there Tuesday evening, so you're there Wednesday morning for those items. Monday the 20, or I don't know, I'm just saying Monday because I keep saying it.
Why don't we do
What's the
Monday?
23rd? I don't even.
What about the
23rd is a
15th?
Tuesday. I would prefer the 22nd, which would be
I
Monday.
prefer the 22nd, November 22nd. Are we good with November 22nd?
Yes.
Is there was there a motion in a second?
Yeah, the motion was just to move the meeting.
I didn't hear a second.
Second.
Damn.
Can we wait and
What's the
see if
motion
it
here?
works for the city?
Because if I'm the only one.
Yeah.
So hang on one second.
Yeah.
So I'm not following the bouncing ball very well over here.
You got the 12 dates?
So Monday, the 22nd is kind of what we're considering. I don't have an understanding for my team if a Monday night would work. We have talked about, I hate to say it, city staff generally keeps Tuesdays light, just because a lot of our events do happen on a Tuesday,
On court.
Court night.
as well as this room generally does use court. I don't
court,
have the
too, that's
court
separate.
calendar in front of me, but this room on Monday evenings doubles as our court. So that is kind of one of the reasons why we tend to stick to a Tuesday if we're moving dates around.
Let's do it on the 25th on that Thursday.
All right, let's rein this in here. We're back. We're at the 23rd. The 23rd was selected by staff ahead of time. Here's a day that may work. And there was a motion, and there was a second on the 23rd already.
Yes.
All those in favor of moving the meeting to the 23rd?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Okay, she's just gonna. She abstains. No, I'm kidding. No, thank you. We'll move it to the 23rd. Sorry, Amy. We'll get you on another meeting. Next item, please. 18.
Number 18, discussion regarding pedestrian safety, armor, and clay.
So
Oh,
this is
sorry.
your last discussion item of the agenda. This is a discussion regarding pedestrian safety at Armor and Clay, and I'd like to hand this over to Sarah Copeland and Anthony Sands.
So at your last meeting, Councilmember Graves expressed a concern about pedestrian safety at Armour and Clay. And so the weekend of the 29th, Public Works crews repainted the crosswalks at that intersection, and they installed pedestrian crosswalk signs to improve the visibility of the crossing there. We think that's a good short-term action for pedestrians in that location. We also looked at records from the police department and the fire department, and we have not historically had a history of crashes in this location or responses to emergency calls. We will continue to evaluate the rectangular rapid flashing beacons as part of the downtown streetscape project. Anthony has raised this with our construction manager, and so they're looking into it. But we also want to have some time to evaluate whether that might cause a traffic impact that would impact Burlington because of the proximity of that intersection with the Burlington intersection. We don't want to put something in that would cause any traffic backups that would impact Burlington because then MoDOT would get involved. So our plan is to bring this back to you for a future recommendation. But if there's any other questions or comments, we are definitely open to those at this point.
Thank you. Are there, Councilmember Saper?
I want to thank you for those improvements you have made, and I think we should give it a chance to see how well it works and how people feel about it who are using it. And it may be enough that we don't have to go any further. But again, thank you for reacting quickly and doing that.
Councilmember?
I was just saying exactly that.
There we go. Councilmember Clevenger. No, we got you. Go ahead.
I didn't want to cut in front of Lisa. I just wanted to thank Councilmember Graves for bringing this forward, especially for pedestrians. I had rode with the wife, and she drove by it so we could take a look at it, and she don't trust me if it looks better or not, but with her, she said it was much more visible, but certainly we want to keep an eye on it and make sure that that we keep that area safe. So thank you for bringing it forward.
That's a tough act to follow. Any further comments? Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, just real quick, shout out. You guys did a great job. I appreciate how quickly you jumped on that. And I also just want to point out that if there isn't a great solution for this intersection, then maybe we just delete it. You know, if it's not a safe place to cross and we determine that there's no great way to fix it, then it's not the end of the world if people have to just walk down to Swift and safely cross the street. So I appreciate you guys. Great job. Thank you.
I feel like some city stuffers. Lead it at it, move it, rezone it, boom. Thank you for bringing this item up, though.
I have one.
Oh, go ahead, please.
I want to add one comment to that. One concern that Sarah and I have talked about is that state law does indicate that every intersection is a unmarked pedestrian crossing. So if we were to remove the crosswalk and the signs, we would still technically have a crossing there. It just would be unmarked. So that is something we've been researching and wanting to just comment on that.
Yeah.
Well, I take back my comments about deleting it. So we got to make it safe. Thank you.
I think we need a consultant. Yeah. I'm kidding. Okay, next item, please.
19, creation of a paid parental leave policy, resolution number 21-067.
Yep.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to take this one initially, but if you have any in-depth questions, I'm going to tag team it over to Casey Campbell, our HR manager. So the city of North Kansas City, we comply with FMLA, or the Family Medical Leave Act, which grants 12 weeks of unpaid job-protected leave to employees. And one of the qualifications is if a individual becomes a parent. Currently, the city actually has no paid parental leave policy. And the purpose of one of those is to give parents flexibility and time to bond with their new child, adjust their new family situation, and to balance their new work-life obligations. As you guys know, what we have talked about several times is we are in competition for talent. And one of our biggest competitions is the city of Kansas City, Missouri, who has one of these policies. So we are proposing pretty much matching Kansas City, Missouri's paid parental leave policy. We do believe that this might put the city in a better competition as we battle for very limited talent, specifically in several different nodes. Within the memo, we actually kind of outline when an employee would qualify for one of these. it's traditionally a birth, adoption, or a foster situation. So currently, right now, if an employee has one of these life events, they can qualify under FMLA to protect their job, but they actually draw down on their personal wells of time off, which, as you know, sometimes people have to choose. Do I choose a paycheck or do I choose time with my new family structure? So one of the things that this policy would do would be to remove that choice of having to draw down their personal wells. Typically speaking, most employees take the time. Sometimes they're able to save up to make it financially viable for them. Sometimes they are not. This particular thing is not a replacement for that particular FMLA policy. Like I said, what it is it provides 6 paid weeks for new parents, whether that be by birth, foster, or adoption, and an additional 2 weeks should the mother need cesarean help. So anybody who has had that particular birth option for them understands that you don't just bounce back. So, like I said, we have all of the requirements outlined in the memo. We had 6 qualifying events last year, so we had 6 employees that would have qualified under this particular policy. Again, a lot of those employees take that time off anyway. So what this would do would hopefully put us in line with Kansas City, Missouri, and other agencies that provide this type of policy for their staff. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
You know, I had favoritism towards going to 8 weeks, but that's what we got at our workplace.
I stand at the mayor's direction.
I mean, I'd take 8, but Councilmember Smith.
So as a new parent and one with a baby due imminently, I support this 1,000%. My wife is fortunate to work for an employer who has this sort of policy, and it has been amazing to be able to take the time off and be paid for it. A couple questions I had on the nuts and bolts of it. One mentions that you could take the leave, the 6 weeks, in increments of a week at a time, approved by their supervisor. Is there, I'm trying to just think through, is there a scenario where the supervisor would not approve this? Because it seems a little bit tough to say it has to be approved by the supervisor if they could say no.
So I'm actually going to pitch this over to you, Casey. I'm unaware of this type of leave being denied by a supervisor in practice.
It's not going to be. We're going to work on another solution on getting coverage for the individuals. It's fire and police where we would have our concern and coverage.
Gotcha. Okay.
We'll work together and they'll make it happen.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I guess, I'm sorry, to follow up on that. I see it now, though. The leave must be utilized within 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Within the window of the FMLA.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, and then, so yeah, I would prefer to see that removed, but I'm sure there's a business reason for it, so if we could look at that. And then the other one is, it says it goes into effect January 1st of 22. 2 questions on that. One, why January 1st, 22? And 2, do we have employees that we know of right now in the next few months that would have an event that would trigger this?
So the reason why it has the January 1st is because it syncs up with the city's healthcare year. So that would be, now we could arbitrarily move that, but the thought process was it syncs up with the rest of the changes of the city's employee benefits, meaning new healthcare. As you guys, the city council recently adopted all of those new healthcare rates as well as carriers.
Okay.
Boy, I don't have my finger on how many people would qualify for this immediately.
And
Those
you don't
are
have to answer
questions
it.
that I'm not even supposed to ask.
Well,
so.
I just wouldn't want to push for it to be moved up if it was difficult and it wouldn't affect anybody. But if it would, knowing, again, where I'm at in my life, if my wife's employer didn't have it and implemented one to go into effect at the beginning of next year, we'd miss out. So it would be good to see, assuming it's approved, it to go into effect immediately, if that's possible.
I think we could, as long as we got that in the motion, I think that that's a change that we can make.
Councilmember Toll.
I would fully support as soon as possible, and I would like to apologize for anyone who's been working for the city and we didn't have this in place. If it were not for our strategic planning, we wouldn't have even known it. It's crazy to me that it's not in the books.
Thank you, Kim, for...
Absolutely. And for people that don't know, my kids are now 10 and 11, but you can't even bring a baby to daycare until they're 6 weeks old. So if you're a single parent, you're not getting paid and you don't have the option to go anywhere. So this is definitely needed. I 100% fully support it as soon as it's feasible to get started.
Okay, before I call on the next person, I'm going to go ahead and shoot my shot again here. If we, I'd rather just eliminate provision number 2, which is the 2 extra weeks for cesarean, go ahead and just make it 8 for everybody across the board. That's what I'd propose, unless council has any of. Then I'll kick it back to conversation now. Councilmember Saper.
Yeah, I would like to just put it 8 for everyone as well. And competition with Kansas City aside, this is simply the right thing to do. And it's long overdue.
I'm sorry, is there maybe I'm missing it, an initial amount they have to take? Do you have to take the first section in 2-3 weeks?
It's a week at a time.
It's just a week, all of it's a week at a time.
There's not a front load date, there is a back end date, meaning that
Okay.
if you don't utilize that time by the first year, it kind of
Yeah.
evaporates.
Okay, so yeah, I know what we're going on right now is like the first 2 you got to take from the get-go. From there, it's kind of flexible on what you do with the rest of your time, but okay. I haven't called on anybody on this side. Man, I feel like we're
I'll make a
bouncing.
motion.
Councilmember Smith.
Okay, I would move to approve creation of the paid parental leave policy effective immediately with 8 weeks of paid leave.
Second.
All right, there is a motion to approve the paid parental leave with an immediate effective date and 8 weeks of pay.
Is immediate feasible? I mean, is that something, or do we need a date like?
I will update that for today, or tomorrow morning's date.
Yeah.
That's, to me, it does need a date on it somewhere, so it would be tomorrow's date.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay.
Perfect. You got the motion in the second there? All those in favor, this is a resolution. Yes, please say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next item, please.
Number 20, Shared Active Transportation Operating Agreement with SPIN, Resolution Number 21-071.
Kim.
I would like to call on Sarah Copeland.
This agreement that's before you tonight is to allow the Skinny Labs, Inc., which operates spin scooters, to operate here in North Kansas City. This is generally the same agreement as the agreement that you approved with Bird earlier this year. And it has the same fee structure in place of 15 cents for every ride originating in North Kansas City. We do not have a representative from Spin here tonight, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might
Have we received a check from Bird yet?
We received their initial $500 fee. I don't believe we've received the fee for the rides. We're going to follow up with them about that. You know,
I got to get that $1.85.
yeah, but we have been receiving their ridership reports. We know that people are riding.
Good.
But we haven't received the fee yet.
Enough for a good fee? Or we're going to get a big fee?
I mean, not really, to be honest.
You just tell me yes.
It's not thousands of dollars. I'll put it that way.
Oh, man, I was hoping to repave a road over here. Councilmember Roberts.
Well, that's kind of my question here is, if we're not generating a lot right now, do we need a second person here? And it's.
Oh, well, Lisa's got an answer. Councilmember.
Do. I say yes. And the reason why I say yes is because I am very much into scooters, and I don't know if I'll be breaking any rules. I filled out the form. The birds that we have currently are not very good. And in talking to someone else, we have the older version that's here. I loved riding the limes and the other things that came in just to try them out. It's not just me. I've talked to 2 to 3 other people in my neighborhood that were like, whoa, that was very dangerous. And it's not because I haven't been on a scooter before. I have here and in other areas, and I enjoy it. But I would like to bring in someone else to give it a try.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Couple of things, that was one of my questions is, did we need another scooter company here with, the amount of scooters that we have? I'm concerned that Bird hasn't paid us, number one, no matter how much the money is.
Well, you got to hit a threshold first.
Well, yeah, and that may be true too, but we need to find out when we're going to get paid and, how that works. Number two is that, I know we had some kinks with when Bird rolled out, and as far as, I don't know why they've given us the old scooters, if they want to come into a new town, but we're not a new town, but coming into a new area for them. So, they should, give us good scooters. But we're not talking about Bird, but on these here, have we learned anything from the rollout on Bird that we need to do different with this other company if we approve this?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Not in terms of the operating agreement.
Now you finally be able to take them all the way across the bridge. Councilmember Smith.
Remind me, because I got a lot that we've read. Is this a one-year operating agreement, or what's our recourse?
It's through the end of 2022 with a mutual option to renew for 2 additional years.
Okay, and if we approve a second operator and we just see the volume of scooters double as they're trying to jockey for market share, and we get complaints, there's now scooters littering everywhere, what can we do in that scenario? Are we just kind of stuck through the end of 2022?
Well, the agreement lays out how to interact with the company about complaints about parking, where they can park the scooters and where they're not supposed to.
Sure.
So it would be, regardless of how many operators, it's the same procedure to let them know that, the scooters are being parked improperly and they need to come and take care of them. Generally, and it's been a while since I looked at this in the agreement, they have a certain amount of time to address a complaint, and if they don't, we can remove the scooters, and they have to come and get them from us.
Okay. Yeah, and to Lisa's point, I've ridden a few of the Bird scooters. Some are great, some are not so, and hopefully some competition will increase the service level. So I would be in favor of it.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion, second. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no.
No.
Motion carries 7-1. Clevenger, no. All right, next item, please.
Item 21, Memorandum of Understanding for North Rail Streetcar Extension Feasibility Study Update. Resolution number 21-069.
Kim.
I'd like to call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
This memorandum of understanding is between the city and the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority and the Streetcar Authority for the purposes of updating our 2014 streetcar extension study, providing that we are all sharing in the cost of that study update equally and how we will move forward. The request for proposals for updating the study has already been released by the Streetcar Authority, and they would be kind of the lead organization in the procurement and contracting with the consultant on this. And the deadline for firms to respond is September 20th. If you approve the MOU, then we will continue to move forward on this process, and the Streetcar Authority would invoice us for our share of the study costs in October. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any council member comment? Councilmember Roberts.
Move to approve.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item, please.
Item 22, Task Order 3 with Confluence regarding downtown ADA ramps. Resolution number 21-070.
I'd like to call on Sarah Copeland and Anthony Sands.
Am I taking? Okay. This task order, Confluence is the design firm that we've been working with on our downtown streetscape project. We have approved 2 task orders with them so far for design services related to that. In our work with Mega KC as our construction manager at risk, they've identified, and Anthony, who is more of an expert on ADA issues, they've identified a need to really more closely look at the curb ramps in downtown to ensure that they are all ADA compliant. And it's better to do that now so that we don't later have to go back and redo some of this work and impact the decorative paving design at our intersections. So this task order would engage Confluence and their subconsultant engineer to do that more detailed design for the curb ramps throughout downtown. There are 60 of them. There are a lot. And 32? 32, still a lot. Anthony and Mega have walked the downtown and identified that all but one are not ADA compliant. And so we really do need to do this work. And so this task order is just for that design that then Mega would be responsible for constructing as part of this project.
Sounds like we've got a high percentage there.
Move to approve.
Councilmember Graves.
I just have a quick question. I'm in favor of approving it, but just out of curiosity, what makes a ramp ADA compliant versus non-ADA compliant? Just out of curiosity. Sorry, I didn't warn you in advance.
Sure.
I was going to ask that. I just thought of it.
Yeah, no worries. No, there's several metrics that they look at. One of the biggest ones is the slope of the ramp itself. Has to be 8%. Most of ours are 12, 14. There's some side slope considerations. There's considerations when you approach the ramp, the curb is bumped, basically. That can really jar someone in a wheelchair. So there's probably 25, 26 metrics that they look at for these ramps. And it would be nice if we had more than one that was already compliant, but that's what we found.
Second.
I want a picture of that one. Which one
Yeah,
is
which
that?
one is it? It's actually over by Clay.
You get it? That might be my first artwork.
Oh.
The one that's good. Okay, we have a first, and I thought I heard a second.
Yep.
Any further council member discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries with an absence.
Number 23, contract amendment with Burns and McDonald, America's Water Infrastructure Act Emergency Response Plan, resolution number 21-064.
Kim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Actually, the agenda item number 23 and 24 are tethered together, so you had one memo that is for both, and now I will hand it over to Anthony Sands.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Item 23 before you is a requirement that was set down by the EPA in 2018 for community drinking water systems to create or update an emergency response plan. These plans include creating procedures and action plans that can be utilized in events that threaten the safety of the system. They can be from resilience of the system, physical security threats, cybersecurity threats. As many of you know, the great majority of these systems in the last few years have been redesigned and are currently being built with the help of Burns and McDonald Engineering. Because of the active ongoing nature of the plant's construction and implementations like the SCADA system, which is kind of our cybersecurity component of our system, the staff recommends this item should be aligned with the implementation of the new plant and thus be kind of facilitated at the same time. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Move to
Any
approve.
questions? First, second, any council member comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Who made the second?
Oh. Someone over here. This side.
Thank you. Item 24, budget amendment for task order with Burns and McDonald Engineering, resolution number 21-066.
Move to approve.
Yes. Was that did I hear a second?
Second.
Clark on the second. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Number 25, approving the accounts due and payable by the city through September 3rd, 2021. Bill number 7621, ordinance number 9418.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through September 3rd, 2021. I'm sorry, the ordinance is 2019. So I will correct that.
What? Okay.
The motion
Wait, this is not the ordinance
amended.
number?
Yeah, this is the correct ordinance
Oh,
number.
okay, gotcha.
I put the
I
wrong.
move that bill number 7621 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9418.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through September 3rd, 2021.
26, staff comments.
I would like to call on Anthony Sands.
Oh, there we go. She did it before I could.
Actually have something this evening. Back in June, council approved a budget amendment for a sinkhole repair at the House Street pumping station. There was actually two items on that agenda, one for $80,000, which was a grinder pump at the Bedford plant, and then the sinkhole damage. So at the time, we asked for $235,000 for the sinkhole repair. We also mentioned in the memo that we would continuously work with the contractor and the levy district to see if there would be a cheaper option. And we actually were able to arrive at that option. We got it down to $45,000, which is substantially less than what we didn't have to dig down basically to it. We could utilize some different technology. It was a long conversation with the levy district to make sure we could approach it that way in the Corps of Engineers. The question at hand is, so this money was moved into the pumping station maintenance fund. Since then, the 26th Street pumping station has blown a bearing in one of its motors.
True, I knew it was too good, Anthony. Come on. Starts off strong there and fade quickly.
So we were kind of looking for a nod to use. I mean, again, these funds are allocated for the pumping station maintenance. We would like to use these funds to
That's
fix
it.
that
In this
problem.
pocket and right back out that one.
That's,
Look at
yeah.
this guy.
Use it where you need it.
Good, thank you. Any other?
That's it for now.
Is that magic math? Is that Kim's magic math here?
I swear that the budget, like those pump stations, hear us. So whenever bid comes in lower, it hears us and breaks immediately.
I'll have to turn it down next time.
Is there any other staff members that would like to make a comment this evening?
That one was enough.
Nope.
Thank you. That was a ride.
In your packet, you will find the upcoming items of note, as well as we had a couple council inquiries to update the North Kansas City Hospital COVID updates to include all of the updates that we have received. So from now on, whenever we receive any of those updates, we will add it on to that PDF document. That way people have a one-stop shop for seeing all of those reports in one place.
Yeah, I appreciate that we get the history on it, but when I opened it and saw 0 on ventilators and 18 total, I was like, oh my God, we're doing better. And yeah, it was March, so yeah.
The only comment I would make is that we live in a metropolitan area, and I know there are metropolitan reports from other hospitals. And I would like to see a broadening of the base of those reports to get an idea of what's around us that may be coming to us, not necessarily the North Kansas City Hospital, but all around us. So I would
There's
like-
about 10,000 different places here between the state, DHSS, and then as well as the MARC Metro ones.
Yeah.
They're generally a good one
Yeah.
to go to. I can forward that link as well or you can forward.
We could include maybe a cover sheet on these reports.
That would work.
And it would link people to the MARC dashboard. I do find that the MARC dashboard is probably one of the best hyper-local metro items, and a lot of that is, that information is brought into that common dashboard. It does give some great regional perspective.
Yeah.
I know us at the staff level, Chief Hargis and I are part of that continuing effort at the regional level to monitor COVID, and should there be any policy shifts or recommendations, we're part of that task force. In fact, Chief Hargis and I are on those calls weekly.
Good.
So the last item I have is the budget work session is tomorrow. We'll be going over capital. We have, at least at the online budget book link that is available on the city's website, from our last budget work session, we have updated that online tool. We are still kind of learning all the great new things that online tool lets us do, and one of the things is to make it more of a living document, which has always been one of our goals, at least on the admin side, of making sure that that budget document isn't a static PDF, but it is every time that the city council makes a move or an amendment, we do anticipate updating that. That way, the residents, as well as the city council and even department directors, have a good understanding of what that budget looks like throughout its many iterations. So I do invite everybody to take a look at that online budget document. Again, we did take a lot of the comments that were shared with us at last week's budget work session and put those items next to that. Again, we'll go over that again on Wednesday, on tomorrow, and make sure everybody has a good understanding and that we have clear direction. That way, when we bring the budget forward on September 24th for its public hearing and formal adoption, that we are making sure that we are understanding the council's desire of what that final, at least final for that moment in time, document looks like. That's all that I have from the staff level.
I'm still on that wild ride from Anthony there. Got me all excited. I'm lost. Councilmember Roberts.
So I know we had the North Kansas City Hospital reports in here that kind of show us from March to today. I just want to really quickly get those numbers in front of people who are watching or listening's ears, or I guess verbalize them. In the March report, we had 8 active cases. We had 19 people recovering, 0 in the ICU and 0 on ventilators. September 1st, we had 48 active, 17 recovering, 23 in the ICU, and 16 on ventilators. Substantially worse. Last week, Missouri as a whole dropped 6% in new vaccinations. Clay County is still down. Platte County is up 2% in overall vaccinations. We are sitting around 44% for 12 plus and 53 for 18 plus, which is pretty terrible still. I don't know what else to say other than go get vaccinated, wear your mask, wash your hands, do your part, because these numbers are not looking encouraging. And it's a little concerning after Labor Day. You know, Labor Day is a big holiday where people go and do stuff that next couple weeks are going to be rough after back to school and Labor Day. So take care of yourself. And yeah, other than that, this weekend, Chiefs are back, and that's exciting. The last meeting, I talked about small business incentives, both new small business and a marketing incentive. While I was out this last week, I came back to 3 different emails from people, 2 I did not know personally, that were both interested in starting new businesses here. And I told them that we're working on it, and I don't know what the timeline is, and it's a complicated matter. The other person I did know, and they were excited to see that we were exploring new marketing incentives for small businesses. So people are watching, or at least talking. Somebody's watching and talking about it. But it was cool to have 2 people I have no idea who they are reach out about starting new businesses here. That's all I got.
Yes, everyone get vaccinated, because that's going over well. Let's see. I just want to say thank you again to council and city staff and the Parks Board for taking the time on Saturday, the 28th, an untraditional time to meet. But everybody was very joyful, and and Ward 4 was pretty ecstatic to hear that we were in conversation. So it was pretty exciting for River Forest Park for the equipment. So I'm very grateful for you guys to get the ball rolling on that. I'm also looking forward to my neighborhood's first block party. We're having that this Friday. I mean, I say first in the 6 years I've been there. I've never seen it, and I don't know if it's been for a while. I'll get some facts this Friday, some good dish. But yeah, that's all for me.
Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, so I don't have anything earth-shattering this evening. I just want to take a moment and thank the city staff who I know today's meeting, we approved the minutes for 6 meetings on the consent agenda. And so if you're watching at home, I just want you to know that not only the people on the council, mayor, staff, everyone at the city has been working our tails off the last month or 2. And, you know, Nick with the budget, we got, you know, just down the line, like everyone is doing a great job. We have the best employees here at the city, the best staff. And I was really thrilled that we got this paid parental leave policy passed this evening. And that was something the staff brought forward to us and said, look, you know, this is a way that you can make, you know, this a more attractive place to work. And I would encourage you all to, you know, if you got any more ideas, we're all ears. I think that you could tell from the discussion this evening that we truly appreciate you all, and we really want this to be, you know, your forever job. We want you to stay here, love working here. We appreciate you. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Saper.
To those who observe Rosh Hashanah, Chag Sameach, L'Shana Tova, 5782. And I want to again thank the staff for their hard work in the last month in particular, though they work hard all year round. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Tull.
I wanted to say thank you to Kim, who posted everything about the memos. I was asking if we could post those so people would know. And I sent out an email to Ward 2 and other council members. And Liz, I'll get your email and I can send it to you that just details where we were in March and how we got to where we are today. If you're not vaccinated or someone you know or love is not vaccinated, please reach out to us. There are lots of ways to get the vaccine, and Chief Hargis has even gone to people's homes that weren't able to get out. We can help you find those ways. A lot of signups are online. If you call me or email me, I can walk you through that. We can make that happen. We've made the numbers come down before. They've been high before, and we can do it again if we all do our part. The other thing I would like to say is if you are upset with the measures that we've taken with masking indoors, the council approved that. The council voted on that. So if you're upset, please come to us. The mayor can't change that. City staff can't change that. We voted on it. So I would be open and willing to talk to anyone who's upset.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I'll echo those
I know,
comments as well.
I was getting ready to put the forward on right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll echo her comments. Talk to us. Please don't take it out on the business owners or city staff. We were the ones who decided it. We were the ones who voted on it. If you need to vent, reach out. Also, get vaccinated. The numbers are headed in the wrong direction still. Vaccinations are our best way out of this. You've had 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 or 5 of us say it. Please go get your vaccine. One thing that we didn't really talk about that was on the agenda is the approval of Snake Saturday, and I know that might cause a stir because they're projecting a lot of people to be in town, but I am really appreciative of the safety measures that the group that runs Snake Saturday has put in place. You can go back to the agenda and read their memo. A lot of things that they're doing right that are going to make this as safe an event as possible and a big boom for local businesses. And then I do want to comment on Howell Street. The improvements look great. Appreciate that it was done in an efficient manner. It's kind of nice not having the speed hump there that really didn't do much except make your car jump a little bit. The concern is that the people are running over the islands and hitting the posts, backing into them. For anybody listening, that is not evidence that this was a bad idea. It's pretty much proof that it was necessary. Because if people are running into stationary islands and posts, kids are probably at risk from those drivers. So I'm curious, and this is something that I mentioned a long time ago, but now that one sign's already been knocked off its metal post, another one's bent over, is there a possibility of a rigid concrete barrier that if a driver hits that, we don't pay the price, they do?
Public safety started with a chuckle there.
Yeah, I mean... It's going to keep happening. If we have metal posts that can rip off as soon as somebody runs into them, if people are grazing these or backing into them, that's going to cost us a lot of money. If somebody backs into a concrete barrier, it dents their bumper, and we don't have to pay for that.
Which one?
Yeah.
No, but if they get injured, that's where the city liability comes in.
Okay, so if they hit it.
It's better to have a post that snaps off that you can bolt back on than something solid that
would potentially
somebody's actions could really hurt themselves or someone else.
Okay.
I think one other thing we can look into is a post that would be resilient to being backed into. There's some spring options on certain. We could have something as tall as we do now, or shorter, kind of like the things we have in front of the dog park that spring back but attached to the island. So we can explore different options.
It may make it 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, the spring option because if people are backing into them at low speed, the springs will hold versus, if somebody's hitting it at 30 miles an hour, nothing's really going to hold up.
It's still going to be very, very noticeable to them when they hit it, but
correct.
It would, yeah.
Thanks. That's all.
Should be noticeable when you hit the curb in general, but no, I guess not. You're not going to steal a line from Mayor Stilo here. Sounds like it's all been said.
Oh, hold on a minute.
Oh, damn it.
You're trying to get off me, and I got a lot to say tonight.
I tried to save everything.
I got a lot to say. Now,
Councilmember Clevenger.
first of all, I want to say I haven't hit an island yet, and I don't plan to on how. Couple of things. It's been kind of a rough week for me because I've had a friend who is my age, young woman, 48 years old, got COVID, passed away due to complications of COVID. 2 other people that I know are in the hospital with COVID. The underlying factor on all 3 of them is that none of them were vaccinated. They were all unvaccinated. So, how many other members have said it? I'll say it again. Please get vaccinated because it could save your life. And a couple of other things. One thing for Public Works, I was going to try to catch you, Anthony, before the meeting, but on 21st in Knox, there by the little store, that stop sign, there is a tree limb that's hanging down on the west-hand side of the street where that stop sign is that kind of blocks the stop sign. Reason I know that is my dad was picking me up the other day and he ran right through, and I was like, hey, what are you doing? So it's kind of hard to see. So you might, if somebody could take a look at maybe cutting that branch back. And let's see, I wanted to thank those who attended the work session on the CPR and thank the firefighters for coming out and teaching us about the CPR, got the tree limb. And the only other thing, couple of other things. First of all, I know at one point in staff comments, we used to have the YMCA reports. Is that some reason why we don't have those anymore each month, Kim? Or someone, or can we get them back?
Let me reach out to Tina.
Okay.
The last one we received, I believe, was the quarterly one that wrapped a bunch of things up, but that's probably just me missing it more than
Okay.
anything. I
No, that's
apologize
fine.
for that
No,
one.
I'm trying to call anybody out, just, if we can get it on there, that'd be great. And the only other thing is to, again, to reiterate, checking with Bird, make sure, they get us a payment when if we reach their threshold or when it's their time to pay us. But we definitely want to make sure we're getting that. And, if we got some bad quality scooters, people need to reach out and let us know or let Bird know so that we can get those resolved to get good quality scooters. Thanks.
I apologize to Councilmember Clevenger for skipping him there. Now, everything's been said. Number 29, 8, 9, whatever, just read one. No, okay, 29, please, 29.
Consideration of a request to hold in recess into an executive session is requested by the interim city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610.0212.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Consideration of a request to hold in recess into an executive session is requested by the interim city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610.0212.
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Number 31, consideration of a request to hold in recess into an executive session is requested by the interim city administrator to be held on this date on a personnel matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610.0213.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I have.
That was a marathon. Thank you. broadcast on? Okay. All right, for anyone still watching at home, there will be no further public business and no further action taken this evening. Thank you. Besides adjournment.